Hello, welcome to the Live to 110 podcast. My name is Wendy Myers. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm just so thrilled every day that I get to wake up and do what I love and teach people about health and nutrition. And just really love doing this podcast and informing you guys about all the things that you can be doing to improve your health. And these are the things that I do every day. And, I do lots of reading and lots of research and listen to lots of podcasts myself. And so I just love to share all these, amazing new cutting edge things that you can do at home to help dramatically improve your health and meet your health goals and improve your energy levels and improve your brain functioning and so much more. So I'm here to help. Our guest today is Dr. Noah Koyer. He is going to be talking to us about fermented foods. I have not done a podcast yet on fermented foods, but it's something I think it's really, really important to introduce into your diet. Some people can have a little bit of a time getting used to the taste of them. I kind of was repulsed at first when I tasted them. They can have a little bit of a bite to them, maybe be a little bit bitter, which some people aren't used to. But you get used to them, and then I actually crave them now. My body really, really wants fermented foods, so I eat them on an almost daily basis. Very important to introduce into your diet because they contain probiotics and help give you healthy gut bacteria, which is the key to health. A healthy gut equals a healthy life, disease-free, healthy life. So Dr. Noah Koyer is going to be talking to us all about, one, the benefits of fermented foods. Number two, how you can easily introduce fermented foods into your diet, and some tips on how to ferment your own foods. I had a party one time where I invited all my friends over to make a bunch of different fermented foods, and it was a lot of fun. So that's a great way to get friends or have your family together and make a bunch of healthy foods. Very rewarding. But first, I have to do the disclaimer. Please keep in mind that this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. It is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or health condition and is not a substitute for professional medical advice. Please consult with your healthcare practitioner before engaging in anything today that we suggest on the show. Our guest, Noah Koyer, has managed the Family Chiropractic Center of Bayonne in New York for the past 15 years with a mission to guide people to achieve their own innate beauty and good health. His patients range from infants a few years old to enlightened 99-year-olds. In 2014, Dr. Noah co-created a new business with two of his closest colleagues who share the same desire to help humanity live a healthy lifestyle through a think tank organization, the Center for Epigenetic Expression. Dr. Noah is a co-host for the Pain Relief Project, Natural Solutions That Actually Work. This is a summit, and he was a co-host for the recent release summit, Longevity and Anti-Aging Project, Living Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise. You can hear Dr. Noah regularly on the Beyond Your Wildest Genes podcast as a co-host, which is another offering from the Center for Epigenetic Expression. Dr. Noah can be reached at his websites, fccofbayonne.com and the Center for Epigenetic Expression.com, and at the Beyond Your Wildest Genes podcast on iTunes and on Facebook and LinkedIn. Dr. Noah Koyer has been married to his beautiful wife, Carrie, for 15 years and has two incredible children. Noah, thank you so much for joining us on the Live to 110 podcast.
Hey, Wendy. It's so great to be here.
Why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and how you got into health?
Sure. So I was a relatively normal kid growing up, but the one thing that I suffered with was strep throat, ear infections, and I became really familiar with the pink bubblegum tasting amoxicillin. So several times a year I would take that. And as fortunes would have it, my mother met a chiropractor, started seeing a chiropractor. He told her different story of chiropractic, that healing comes from inside out, decided to bring me. I got adjusted by that chiropractor, still get adjusted by that chiropractor today. And I haven't had strep throat since. So that was kind of my initial intro into health, and it grew from there. I um I really got interested in like Dr. Mercola's site. I got really interested in Weston A. Price, and it just kept growing and growing from there. I also grew up in a town that had a lot of Italian and Polish immigrants, and they all cooked their own food and canned their own vegetables and had huge gardens. And my father had a garden. My uh, great grandfather raised bees. My dad raised bees. So I kind of grew up in this natural way of eating and thinking, and it just kept developing and developing and developing. And then a tragedy happened in my life where the person, my mother, who introduced me to chiropractic and a lot of this stuff, got colon cancer and died in 30 days. So that was an impetus to make even a bigger impact, and that's kind of how we got started on the Center of Epigenetic Expression with my two partners and some of the different summits and the podcast that we do. So that's the 2-minute version of a 12-minute story.
Yeah. Yeah, that's how I got into health also, for personal reasons, of course, but also because my father passed away from esophageal cancer. And I think for a lot of people, the tragedy in their lives, steers them towards the health field, unfortunately. So
Yep.
we're going to talk about fermented foods and how those are so important for gut health, gut microbiome, immunity, etc. It's something I haven't explored yet on the podcast. So let's talk about some different examples of cultured and fermented foods.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's define some terms first. First off, I'd like to consider, in my definition, cultured foods and fermented foods is the exact same thing. Uh, the other thing is that fermentation, in its basic definition, is you using bacteria to make food more delicious, more nutritious, and to preserve it. So once we look at that, it opens up a huge world of fermented foods, and those would be things that we're so used to every day, like chocolate, beer, wine, those things, meads, those things are all fermented. Even bread, we wouldn't even have those without fermentation. And then we look at other things like things we see every day in the supermarket, especially now, like kombucha, all the healing tonics, kombucha, and all the Kefir products and shrubs, which are vinegars. And then even cheeses are fermented foods. And the soy products some of the soy products that the only soy products that I think are nutritious are the ones that are fermented would be like miso, tempeh, and natto. So those are some examples.
And I love fermented foods. I try to eat them every single day. I have a brand called Wild Brine that I really love, that has this fermented sauerkraut with ginger and seaweed in it, harame seaweed. It's just really, really flavorful and tasty. And I made them at home before, and so we're going to go into all that stuff.
Yep.
What is the most important, or what do you see as the most important relationships between gardening, fermentation, cultured foods, and your health?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I kind of touched upon that, well, about what I do and who I am, but it's that relationship of getting your hands in the dirt and picking something out of your garden, taking it, chopping it up, adding a little salt, and creating something more nutritious for your family is just, in my mind, it's super cool. But way before I realized how important for your health fermented foods are, I thought it was just really interesting and fun and kind of cool. But even if you don't have a garden, but if you go to a farmer's market, which are all over the place now, no matter where you live, and just pick the brightest, most fresh vegetables, they're so easy to use, chop again, add some salt, and make something that is just so much better, so much more fun, so much more vibrant. So I think that connection really gets us back to what we're missing, right? Everybody's used to packaged foods and fast food dinners. But when you start fermenting foods and doing it at home, man, you get your family involved, and it's just a fun way to connect back to food, real food per se.
What is the difference between pickled vegetables and fermented vegetables?
Yeah, so that's a great distinction. Now, pickled vegetables, in my mind, are vinegar based. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, but generally they're not a live food anymore. So when you think of a fermented cabbage, which is sauerkraut or kimchi or kombucha, that's live. That's teeming with live bacteria. That's teeming with live enzyme. That's a full live food. When you buy something that's pickled, like gardenella, I believe it's called, that's like carrots and cauliflower and things of that nature. That's nutritious, that's crunchy, lots of fiber, but it's not alive. No more live enzymes, no more live bacteria. It has a lot of benefits, but it's nothing like fermented foods. And the interesting thing is if you do fermented foods properly and create that lactic acid, you can't almost tell the difference between a vinegar-based pickled vegetable and a fermented lactic acid-based fermented food. And when I say lactic acid, that's generally the acid that's produced when you ferment foods, and that's really what keeps foods. It keeps its shelf life, because bad bacteria, even like Clostridium, some of the worst bacteria, can't grow in a lactic acid environment. So that's the difference, and that's an important distinction for sure.
Yeah, I think another important distinction to make is, maybe a novice that's going to the grocery store just to try out some probiotic foods, fermented vegetables. They will see a sauerkraut that's mass market produced.
Right.
And the problem is a lot of sauerkrauts or, fermented foods have been pasteurized. So can you tell people what to look for between this sauerkraut that's been pasteurized and this that's actually raw that has the probiotics?
Yeah. I think the classic, especially in my area, I live right outside of New York City, so Nathan's hot dogs and Sabrett hot dogs are, a big thing, particularly in the summer. And classically, you would see sauerkraut in like plastic sealed bags. Well, there's no way that could be alive, right? It's not going to happen. So basically, your best bet is really to shop where you know that these kind of foods are going to be at, like a Whole Foods, or even Trader Joe's is starting to carry them now. But they'll say just all that terminology you said: raw, fermented, live enzymes. That's what you're looking for on the label. And generally, when something's live like that, and you open it up for the first time, you're going to hear a little fizz, like almost. I don't drink soda anymore, but for those of you who drink soda, or even seltzer, let's say seltzer, when you open up that seltzer can and you hear that little fizz, that's built up gas that those bacteria are creating. So that's what you want to look for too, a little fizz. But even now, I'm sure our audience is all over the country. Where I'm at, we have Stop and Shop. That's one of the normal supermarkets. They have health food sections, and they're right in there as well. One of the classic ones that's been around for so long for sauerkraut is Bubby's. That's probably might only be in my area for sure.
Yeah, no, we have that out here in Los Angeles as well. So they're growing. They're getting in lots of different places in the U.S. But yeah, you definitely have to look for the word raw. It has to say raw on the outside of it, or it's probably dead.
Yeah, exactly. And it could be alive for a long time too. That's the cool thing. In the stores, there might have a shelf life on it, or they might have a date on it. But when you make it yourself, man, that stuff just gets better and better and better. I have some fermented Meyer lemons in my refrigerator. That's probably they're like 2 years old easily, and they're just getting better and better.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, and so let's talk about eating fermented foods versus taking a probiotic pill. Kind of what is the distinction, the difference, and the benefit in eating the fermented cultured foods?
Yeah, that's an interesting topic. And a couple weeks ago, I happened to be at a little microbiome forum in the city at Sakara Lounge. And Aviva Ram was there, Dr. Raphael Kelman, and Dr. Robin Berzin. So a really nice three-headed panel. And they asked the same exact question. And my answer my answers were going to be pretty similar. First off, when you buy a probiotic pill, what you're looking for is how many coliforming units are in that probiotic pill. So low-level supermarket brands might have in the millions, maybe 1 or 2 billion CFUs, and that's decent. pharmaceutical grades of stuff that you're really familiar with, stuff from like Claire Labs and Prothera and other companies, you probably can mention a few, have upwards of 50 billion CFUs, and that's a good number. But when you make fermented foods at home, I've seen numbers of people that have made fermented foods, particularly Dr. Mercola did this with his he has a culture starter called Kinetic Culture, which I highly recommend, where you can kind of direct which bacteria you're growing and other nutrients. And he did a study where he just, made his sauerkraut, tested it, and there was trillions and trillions of bacteria in just like a few tablespoons. So the potency on fermented foods are so much far greater than the probiotic pills. Saying that, I still think it's really, really important to take a probiotic in your daily regimen, whether it's something like lactobacillus and bifidobacter or something more soil-based like prescriptive cyst, which I love. So I think a combination is important, but fermenting foods is going to increase your potency like tenfold. And plus, when you ferment your foods, you're creating nutrients. One of the big nutrients when you ferment foods properly that's created is vitamin K2. Now, K2 is hard to get, right? I mean, it's really hard to get in food, and it's super important. And it's made by fermenting natto and some other vegetables. So it's really important. Another interesting story about how fermented foods increases nutrient density beyond probiotics is back in the day when the sailors would go on their long journeys, they had a real strong risk of getting scurvy. And we know now that it was a vitamin C deficiency, but back then they had no idea. But what they did know is if they bought barrels and barrels of sauerkraut on their trip, nobody would get scurvy. So beyond the different varieties of bacteria and virus and archaea and fungus that grow when you make fermented foods, it has its own nutrient density. And not to mention, when you buy probiotics in the store, that's not from your physician or not from your doctor or not from your healing practitioner, high chances are that they're already dead. Like they're just not even alive. It's just a crappy product. Like I don't know where you get your probiotics from for your clientele, but one of the big companies I use is Claire Labs, and they ship it to you in ice and ice packs to keep it cold. So that's how important it is. So the benefits, the differences is when you make your own, you're getting a lot more bang for your buck, and it's probably cheaper too, particularly if you grow your own vegetables.
Yeah, and also one other tip I was thinking of when you're buying it in the grocery store is you have to look at the price. Because like a dead jar of sauerkraut, a lot cheaper than a live jar fermented. It's like, $15 for a little jar of the fermented sauerkraut because it's, it takes a long time to make. But the dead, maybe $3-4. So look at the price point. You're not going to get away with live foods for on the cheap. So that's why it's good to make it at home. So what is the best way to introduce fermented or cultured foods into your life, to your diet?
That's important too, because I've been fermenting foods for about 15 years now, and I've run into this problem with myself several times. The best way to introduce fermented foods is slowly. We've all heard that statement, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. I think Hippocrates said that. Well, this fermented foods is medicine in my mind in terms of it's really strong, it's really potent, it's really nutrient dense, it's got tons of probiotics, live enzymes. If you make sauerkraut for the first time and you just have a bowl of it, boy, oh boy, your stomach's going to start talking to you.
Yeah.
Or if you buy a couple bottles of JT's kombucha and you just drink a bottle or two, it's going to affect you in some sort of negative way. So the way to do it is slowly. Whether you buy a great product or whether you make your own, a few tablespoons every meal for several days, or buy a bottle of like JT's kombucha or the lemon cayenne Kevita, which is like my favorite drink, and have a third of a bottle for 3 days and see how you feel and slowly ramp up. But I think the idea and the goal is to have a little bit of some sort of fermented food almost, almost every day and almost at every meal. A great way to add it in to your smoothies. I happen to like goat milk kefir as opposed to regular. Cow's milk kefir just agrees with me more. I think it agrees with most people more. Uh, but if you make a smoothie in the morning with like coconut milk or almond milk or even yogurt or regular milk for that matter, a great substitute is start adding some like goat milk kefir too, because you got a ton of beneficial bacteria and a ton. It just transforms that goat milk into something much more special. That's really healing for your stomach, really great for your digestion, really great for your skin, immunity, the whole thing. So those are some of the ways that I think you can add them in slowly. For breakfast in the smoothie, for lunch, a little sauerkraut. Maybe a little bowl of real miso soup, because you can get real live miso paste in the supermarket now. That's not that much, $5, $6, $7 for a tub, and you could use a tablespoon in a cup of boiling water, and so those are some of the best ways I think to add them. But slowly is the key. The last thing you want to do is create stomach distress, and then you just get turned off by it because it was a little bit too much for you.
Yeah, I mean, some people that really have impaired digestion, or really their gut bacteria is really out of whack, they've got major health conditions, autoimmune disease. Some of them can only handle like some of the juice for vegetables. They can't even handle much less a bite. They have to start really, really slow.
Wendy, I got to tell, I'll let you in a little secret. That's me right now. I have, through, I don't know what means, all of a sudden my HCl or stomach acid production has dropped off the face of the earth. So I actually, I'm currently treating with, I have SIBO right now. So I'm on some microbials and virals, and I'm eating like a FODMAP / SIBO kind of diet, and which I have a little bit of fermented foods, but I'm eating a little bit less than I normally would, because exactly why you said, right? If your stomach is not functioning the way it should, it's got to be a little bit slow, work up, rebuild that microbiome, rebuild your digestion, stomach, digestive enzymes. And then, so I'm in that boat right now.
Yeah, tell us what SIBO is for anyone who's not aware of that and what can cause that.
Yeah, SIBO is small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So you're not, as humans, supposed to have any bacteria in your small intestine. All those beneficial bacteria that do all those good things are only supposed to be in your colon, right? Through a variety of reasons, excessive stress, low stomach acid, and a few other reasons, that those bacteria can start creeping up into the small intestines, and then it just aggravates the problem. Then you get more constipation, which even creates worse SIBO symptoms, and it's just like a bad kind of cycle. So what you got to do for someone on SIBO is you have to starve off those bad bacteria. You got to speed that up with some antimicrobials. There's an antibiotic too, an off-label antibiotic you can use that I've decided not to use. And you got to really eliminate all the sugars from your diet, all the refined carbohydrates, and nothing like corn and potatoes and rice, and even things like chocolate, and then some vegetables like onions, which I love to ferment, but no onions, no garlic, things like that. So that's where I'm at right now. And I think it's pretty rampant in our society because, we do, and this, our society is stuck on the fact that we produce too much stomach acid, and that everybody needs Protonix and Pepsid and Zantac, when the truth is that 50% of people over 50 have too little stomach acid, and they're really treating it the absolute wrong way. So I think if you gave the Quintron test, which is a breath test to diagnose SIBO, to most people, I think a heck of a lot of people would show positive for sure.
Yeah, a lot of people that are having bloating and gas, and they just feel really bloated after a meal.
Yes.
And they're not digesting their food well. There's other symptoms too, but
bloating is a you nailed that on the target. You nailed that on the head. Definitely bloating and stomach pain, constipation, even bad skin. which I started getting too, and using my skin is looks pretty good. So, and I'm too young to have bad skin.
Yeah, yeah, and that most doctors are not going to clue into that unless they're a functional medicine practitioner. SIBO is just not on their radar,
Not
unfortunately.
not in the least, which is kind of silly.
Yeah, yeah, and so let's talk about how fermented foods are a valuable part of a primal lifestyle.
Yeah, so let's define primal as being, you know, eating like our ancestors did, sleeping like our ancestors did, exercising like our ancestors did, playing like our ancestors did. And, as a culture, as a human race, there was a time when water wasn't safe for us to drink at all. So we lived on things like wine and meads and beers, even kids, because that was once you fermented it or made this alcoholic beverage, they were safe to consume. So it's something that we've just developed as humans. And when we are starting to come together as little cultures and little tribes, we had to figure out ways to preserve our foods, and that's the way they did it, by fermenting it, storing it, and keeping it cold, and salting it, and all the other things that we've developed. And when you look at every different culture, whether it's Japanese, whether it's Russian, doesn't matter. They all have their own set. So it's been a part of our primal paleo ancestral way of looking at things and developing since we were humans, for sure.
Yeah, and
No doubt.
today most people the only fermented food they're getting is beer.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
know, and way too much of it, right?
Yeah.
And that's not even live anymore. That's
That
just
doesn't count.
no.
Does not count. No probiotics in there, unfortunately, unless you're making your own at home, maybe. Yeah, I was just joking.
You know
So,
that you know that's coming. You know that's coming, right?
yeah, yeah. So let's talk about the importance of gut health and how your gut is so tied to your immune system health, and as a majority of your immune system, and what goes wrong when you don't have proper gut bacteria that is aided by eating fermented foods.
Yeah, as I mentioned in the beginning, when I first started doing this, I thought it was kind of cool and fun and interesting, and kombucha was kind of a weird looking thing. But as time went on, you just saw more and more articles. Now the microbiome is like the hottest topic. You can't escape it. It's everywhere, and it's because that ecosystem in our enteric nervous system dictates and controls so much. It's considered, and Dr. Kelman and other people, it's basically like its own organ in and of itself. In that environment, in our gut and in our enteric nervous system, in our microbiome, we're creating all sorts of vitamins and minerals that we don't get from our food. We're creating all or most of our neurotransmitters. Most people think the neurotransmitters or the chemical communications that happen in our brain are created in our brain, and that's not true. They're really created down in our gut, primarily serotonin, dopamine, all those. Uh, and then when we just look at how expansive the central nervous system is, and the connection between the central nervous system, the enteric nervous system, your microbiome. The nervous system runs the show, runs your immune system, runs your endocrine system. So it's ubiquitous in every aspect of health possible. You can't go to a functional medicine doctor with any symptom you go to a functional medicine doctor with, essentially they're going to look really closely at your microbiome, your stomach health, your gut health, whether it's thyroid, whether it's autoimmunity, whether it's cancer. It's tied into every single aspect of your life, and it's indistinguishable, inseparable, and it's that crucial.
I know. I mean, almost every client that comes to me has some sort of digestive issue, whether it be low stomach acid, they have H. pylori, they've got all kinds of intestinal systems issues, whether it be IBS, diarrhea, constipation, candida, parasites. I mean,
Right.
something, and they have malabsorption.
Yeah.
Every test I do for amino acids, people are not absorbing their amino acids for various reasons. Metal toxicities, of course,
Right.
but definitely, they have a compromised intestinal lining and compromised gut microbiome. Can you talk a little about that?
Yeah, think about it, right? If you're not producing the right stomach acid or the digestive enzymes, or you have dysbiosis, which is when we look at the totality of the microbiome, which is all the different bacteria and all the different viruses and fungus and archaea, and even some parasites that are in that grouping of that organ. If that's not functioning right, you're simply not going to break down your food. You're simply not going to properly digest your food, and you're going to have, as you said, malabsorption. So you're just we're always so worried about taking in a multivitamin. Well, how about starting with digesting what you're eating? And I believe the ancient healing art of Ayurveda, which is considered the oldest healing science or art out ever, states that it's not necessarily what you eat, it's what you digest,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's crucial, and it's having a healthy microbiome is part and parcel of having great digestion and then breaking down your food and absorbing those minerals and then integrating them into your body. I mean, it's really truthfully it's just amazing and astounding.
Let's talk about the connection between fermented foods and a properly functioning nervous system. A lot of people have stress and anxiety and all kinds of sleep issues. How does that relate back to the gut?
Yeah, it's just what we've mentioned a few different ways. Like, most people think that most of the neurotransmitters are created in your brain, but they're not. They all the communication molecules that your nervous system functions on is created in your gut. So without a properly functioning microbiome, you can't have a properly functioning enteric nervous system, and then you can't have a properly functioning central nervous system, which is your brain, your spinal cord, and your peripheral nerves that go everywhere in your entire body. And that's the reason why I think most functional medicine doctors start with the gut now, because it has impacts on everything, including your thyroid, and then that just goes down to a whole nother rabbit hole. But you can't escape how integral the microbiome, your gut health, the enteric nervous system, and then central nervous system tied in. We think that the most neurons we have is in our brain. Well, there's more nerve cells in that enteric nervous system than there is in your central nervous system. So you could see how huge it is. Not to mention all the Peyer's patches and all the other things in your digestive system and enteric nervous system that creates immune cells. And it's so expansive and so exciting that it just goes on and on and on.
Yeah, let's talk about some key resources and products that you need to help you to begin making your own fermented foods and how to make them at home.
Yeah, like I like to consider myself self-taught or a self-taught expert, but the truth of the matter is that I've been following, taking courses, and watching people for a long time. One of the first books and one of the first people that I started reading was Dr. Sandor Katz. His first well, he wrote another book, I think A World Without the Microwave or something was his first book, but he wrote Wild Fermentation, which is a great book. And then I brought it up here. Let's see if everybody can see this. This is the Bible right
Yeah,
here.
the art
Sandor
of
Katz.
fermentation.
Yeah, this is a great one. He's really a fascinating individual. So he's a great read. But then some of the classes I've taken is Jenny McBrother from Nourished Kitchen has a great fermentation class. Of course, Donna Gates from Body Ecology has a great fermentation class. She has a bunch of cultures. I mentioned it before. Dr. Mercola has a lot of videos on his site on how to make sauerkraut and his kinetic culture. So those are the best resources I know. Cultured. And the other one is who's Hannah Crum for Kombucha Camp. She's one of them. I mean, kombucha is a big deal in the fermented food realm, right? I mean, it's like the cure-all. But she has a great site, a great new book. She just wrote the Big Book of Kombucha, which is another historical perspectives and what you could do with kombucha and how you can use it. So those are the resources. Hannah Crum, Jenny McGrother, Donna Gates, Sandor Katz, and one of the newer. She's newer in terms of for me, I don't know if you know her or not, but Summer Bach is huge into the
Yes.
fermented world too. And I've just started looking at, I know she's got a massive class that she puts on to teach people how to ferment food. So I would recommend her material as well. Absolutely.
Yeah, I learned from watching videos on Donna Gates' website, bodyecology.com, and that was one of the first books that talked about the importance of the gut microbiome and how to care for it. And I actually had a group of friends come over, and we all had a, fermented vegetable party, and had our little mandolin, and shredding the vegetables, and we had the body ecology, fermentation, seeds, the
Yeah,
little, yeah, the
the little
whatever,
culture packet.
the cultures, and put those in some warm water and some honey or something sweet, and then we made celery juice, lots and lots and lots of
Uh,
minerals and celery juice and salts, naturally occurring salts, and use that as like our little liquid base, and it was fun.
yeah, using that's a trick that a lot of people don't do. That is a good idea when you're fermented foods to juice celery. Celery juice is a great trick. It's got natural nitrates and nitrates in it that really help the fermentation process. That's a good. I should have mentioned that. That's a great point. But yeah, Donna Gates is. I mean, she's done a lot of firsts, right? She's brought stevia into the market and young coconut kefir and all sorts of firsts she's done. So she's really innovative. She's a great place to start.
And that's a really easy thing for someone first starting out making vegetables. They can, or fermented foods. They can do a fermented coconut kefir, and it's really really the simplest things you can do.
The simplest thing, but if you can handle cow's milk or even goat's milk, man, you just get a culture packet from Body Ecology. Let that milk get to room temperature, put that packet in there, shake it up in a mason jar, leave it on your counter for 2 days, and bam, you have kefir. I mean, it's it's so easy. It's absurdly easy.
Yeah, I made that one time. I went to my local farmers market and got these cultures, like the little seeds they call them, little.
The grains, the
Yeah,
kefir grains.
the kefir grains. That's what they are. I can't remember anything today. Whatever the terminology. So I've done it before. I just don't remember the words, what it's called. So I got the kefir grains and made that, and you can keep using them over and over and over and
Yeah.
over. And those are kind of handy.
Yeah, those are just like a kombucha. The kefir grains is what's called a SCOBY, or a symbiotic culture of bacteria and yeast. So those are live little cultures that are ready to just ferment anything. And you could do milk, like you said. You can do young coconut kefir. But if you could find those grains, really live grains, they're great to have, and they keep reproducing. And they're neat. They're a little harder to come by, but I think they're better. Uh,
Yeah.
they're more active. That's a better product if you get your hands on those for sure.
Yeah, yeah, and you can find them at your farmer's market if you go to the little stall that has the raw dairy. They will typically have them, not always, but that's where you find them. They're in the back. You have to ask for them. They
Yes,
don't have
right.
them just advertised. Yeah.
Mm,
So I have a question I like to ask all of my guests.
sure.
What do you think is the most pressing health issue in the world today?
Wow. I wish I had a thought. The most precious, most pressing health issue is people outsourcing their health to someone other than themselves. Healing comes from inside out, and you have to trust in your own innate healing abilities. Find out, experiment, find out what you need to do, and take action. Because once we give our health or put our hands into someone else's hands, you're giving up a lot. Now, that's not to mean you shouldn't get help. I mean, I kind of think I know what I'm doing, but I'm under the care of a doctor right now, too. But people don't want to take responsibility for their health anymore. And I think that's my message. You got to really take responsibility for your own health. If you don't, who else is really going to care for how healthy you are?
I love that answer because that's my whole message to people, and why I started my website is to empower people to take responsibility for their own health. No one cares as much as you do.
Right.
They just don't, no matter how well-meaning they are and whatnot. Like, for instance, my poor mother just developed an E. coli bladder infection and went to doctor after doctor after doctor. Finally, after the fourth doctor, he finally diagnosed it as E. coli and then wanted to put her on antibiotics, which she took, even though I told her, maybe it's not the best idea. But E. coli is pretty serious. There's a time,
Yeah.
there's a time and
Yep.
a place for antibiotics.
Absolutely.
But then that didn't work. And then the doctor wanted her to do another one and then another one, but she was shining an infrared light on the area. And I was told her to take super high dose vitamin C. That will kill off infections, but she's still dealing with it. Unfortunately, because she hasn't been doing the natural stuff as much as she should be. And it's tough because the doctors just, they're not able to take care of it for her. And just as one example, that's just one example of many.
Yeah.
You know,
Absolutely.
yeah. And I always believe that, you want to do natural protocols first before resorting to medication or surgery.
Yeah, I mean, and in chiropractic, we've even before I got into the nutritional one, we would say chiropractic first, medicine second, surgery last, and you could kind of apply that to anything, right? You could natural health first, medicine second, surgery last, right?
Yeah, I do my chiropractor twice a week. I have to. I have for years. I have to go to my chiropractor. I mean, now of course I have a bulging disc in my lower back, which I got from lifting weights with a trainer. A little overzealous with the old lady over here. So now I'm dealing with that. But I go to my chiropractor twice a week, very faithfully. Love him. So why don't you tell the listeners a little bit more about you and where they can find you?
Yeah, so if you're anywhere right outside of New York City, my chiropractic office is 5 miles outside of New York City, and it's a great facility. We have physical therapy, acupuncture, chiropractic, nutrition, the whole ball of wax, and that's www.fccofbayonne.com. So FCCOFBAYONNE.com. But globally, like you, we have a business with my partners, Dr. Mike Akinfor and Dr. Wanda Lee McPhee. A few years ago, we created the Center for Epigenetic Expression, and we've hosted a few summits, and we have a pretty large podcast that just cracked 100,000 subscribers called Beyond Your Wildest Genes. And we talk, and you're going to be on that soon. And we just talk about anything that supports your health in a positive way.
Yeah, I love the name of your podcast. It's so cute.
Dr. Mike came up with that in some sort of thought flash in the middle of the night, and I think it's one of the most clever names I've heard. I like it too. It's sticking. It's staying and sticking for sure.
And so, as the listeners know, I have an upcoming medicinal supplement summit. I've spoken on, well over 35 summits, and I wanted to finally do my own summit.
Yes.
And you are a guest on the summit. You're a speaker on the summit. Tell us a little bit about your talk on the summit.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk, or we've talked about, and it's going to be released soon, some natural supplements that deal with acute and chronic pain. Right. So pain is as a chiropractor, and I keep going back to that, we don't really like to talk about pain. We just like to get people out of pain as fast as possible. But, there's supplemental ways to speed your recovery or eliminate or speed those processes up, like reducing inflammation by using some really specific supplements like fish oils and vitamin D and proteolytic enzymes, and we kind of get down and dirty with that stuff. But as we know, the traditional methods for dealing with pain, like NSAIDs, Advils, aspirins, those carry some significant risks to your stomach, to your kidneys, to your liver. But nutritional and natural supplements hold very little risk, with in many ways much of better benefit and safer benefit and long-lasting benefits. Because if you reduce inflammation in your body, not only are you going to get rid of your pain, in many cases you're also going to stave off things like neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and things. So that to reduce your pain, reduce your inflammation, has such profound impacts on your health. We know that, I don't think I mentioned this on the summit, but chronic low back pain shrinks your brain. Who the heck wants chronic low back pain, and who wants a smaller brain? I
Yeah.
don't. But that's a study, that's proven, that's research. Chronic pain shrinks your brain. I don't want my brain any smaller than it is right
Yeah.
right
Me
now.
neither. I'm certainly at risk for that.
So so that's my topic, and and I know you have a whole bunch of awesome speakers, and I'm really looking forward to listening in, supporting, affiliating, and being a part of your summit for sure.
Yeah, we have a lot of exciting speakers. We have Mike Adams of naturalnews.com. We have Dr. Daniel Amen of brainhealthmd.com. He does the brain scans.
Yes.
We have got Katie Spears, the wellnessmama.com. A lot of amazing people. So if you have been wondering about what supplements are right for you, the latest in supplement customization, how to do testing to customize supplements to your body, and how to take supplements, the best supplements for various health conditions, definitely go check out the medicinalsupplementsummit.com. Certainly a mouthful.
I I think it's an absolute no-brainer summit because it's such an important topic. It's such an important topic. I can't wait to get my hands on it for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I love supplements, and I've taken a lot of different supplements, a lot of different brands, and it's hard when you first start really caring about your health. You start taking supplements, and you don't know what to take. And I had like a whole grocery bag full of supplements, and I take them into my doctor and then my chiropractor. What do you think I should take and not take? And there's a lot. There's a learning curve
Oh,
that
huge.
people have to kind of deal with. And so this summit is going to help people reduce that learning curve and get them taking what's right for them.
Anything that you can do to speed up your knowledge base is worth the investment.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Well, Noah, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. Anything else you want to add to our conversation?
absolutely. Just when it's released, let me know. I want to share it too.
Okay. Listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to the Live to 110 podcast. You can learn more about me at my websites, live to110.com, and check out my healing and detox program at mineralpower.com. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you, Wendy, for having me.
Why don't you tell the listeners a little about yourself and your background?
Sure. I came to this work by way of my children, actually. My youngest daughter, who was adopted from China, had a vaccine injury. And I did my research and recognized that it had been caused by a vaccination, and went to the pediatrician sharing my discovery. And the pediatrician denied everything that I was saying. And I realized that it was up to me to protect my children. So I then started researching, and that was about 20 years ago. And in my research, I first explored vaccines themselves, the ingredients, the testing that had and had not been done. But then I bumped into homeoprophylaxis, which is a subset of homeopathy, which provides education to the immune system against infectious disease. And I realized this is a solution. Excuse me. This is absolutely what can work for people. It's safe. There's never been any injuries, any deaths from it, and it's highly effective and has been researched throughout the world, utilized very much throughout the world.
Yeah,
So that short.
homeopathy is recognized, it's paid for by the Swiss government because it's recognized as safe and effective, and their government pays for it. Their medical system pays for it. So
Exactly.
homeopathy is proven to work. So why don't we talk about a bit about the vaccine debate, and in your opinion, if you believe vaccines, are harmful?
Well, I think that the intention of vaccines started out correctly. The concept of taking a small dose of the actual disease to provide immunity to that disease is an accurate perspective, but it's gone astray quite a bit. Basically, when we expose ourselves to these diseases in the environment, we develop natural immunity. So it's Mother Nature's way of creating immunity in the individual, and it's part of our development. Now, some people are strong enough to withstand the natural disease, and others are not strong enough to withstand the natural disease. So along come vaccines, which were basically a product of cowpox initially, and the experiments by Edward Jenner with cowpox and milk maize, putting the pus from cowpox into a cut on their own skin, providing them some immunity. But since that time, things have become much more complex and convoluted, and I think that one of the major issues with vaccines is the number of vaccines children are receiving.